Okay, well, thank you very much. I'm honored to be here. As I was at lunch telling people I'm the only one here that doesn't have any initials after their name. But maybe after this talk, FUBAR might be appropriate. We'll see. Anyway, I got asked to do this presentation to kind of give you some background on the first responders and the kind of the world that we work in, our personality types, what happens when we lose one of our own in a first responder suicide, and what processes are done in within the departments and within the coworkers and within the families themselves, because there's very unique things that we have to deal with that a lot of people aren't aware of, or the way that departments act or don't act, especially when it comes to suicide. So, as they said, I have 25 years of experience with Seattle Police. Prior to that, I was 3 years reserve officer with Spokane PD. Seattle hired me. I came over here, and I've been here ever since. And, I could go through, I've done lots of things. I've seen lots of things that people shouldn't see, and have had to deal with things that people shouldn't have to deal with. I've lost 3 close friends to line of duty death, and I haven't ever shed a tear for him once. And I went to a counselor one time who said, well, that's just not normal. Well, it is for me. But if you put me in front of watching beaches or fried green tomatoes, I'll be a blubbering idiot. Okay? So, but that's something that I've had to kind of develop over time. I'm not saying it's a good thing. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It's something that has worked. And fortunately, this day, one of the people that I lost line of duty, good friend of mine, old partner, I'm almost best friends with his surviving spouse, and which makes, I help her, and that helps me, and so that's how I deal with that. So we'll kind of, let's see here, maybe. There we go. So one thing that I did, during the course of my career, I've seen too many lives, careers, or families destroyed over things that are preventable. Okay? And that comes through depression, PTSD, substance abuse, suicide, all these things because of the stressors of the job and because of what we have to deal with and the cumulative effect over time. And, I'm never worried about the one particular incident, especially like an officer-involved shooting or things like that, because that's easily identifiable. We can point to that, say, that's a big issue. We better focus on that and get people help they need. It's the day-to-day grind that we see, and since we work in an abnormal environment, it's all the abnormal stuff that we deal with on a daily basis. And so that's what can catch up to us, because we do this job for 10, 15, 25, 30 years, and we see this over time. So since I saw that we were losing people and families and relationships and careers over things that were preventable, I created a group called Code 4 Northwest. And Code 4 Northwest is a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week crisis line that deals with former and current, doesn't matter if you're hired, retired, fired, first responders, EMS, corrections, nurses. You even deal with counselors, doctors, anybody who's kind of in the front line on the grind, who has to deal with trauma and traumatic situations. All the civilian support staff that works within these agencies all across Washington, which includes the dispatchers, admins, janitors, all the people that are there, and all family members. And we're a crisis line response and referral service, which means what makes us unique is, yes, our phones are staffed 24/7 by volunteers. We're 100% all volunteer. I don't get paid for this. Nobody gets paid for it. That work in the field. There are other first responders, other EMS, other nurses, other corrections officers, other firefighters. We have veterans that do it as well, because a lot of first responders are veterans. And it's a natural progression to go into the first responder community. So with that, so we staff the crisis line. We also, our referral service, what we've done, we've amassed the resources throughout the state. So we have personally gone out and vetted counselors, attorneys, you name it, whatever the resource might be, we found it, we vetted it, and we get it back to the person. Or we have it. If we don't have it, we'll find it, and the person doesn't have to go looking for it. The other thing we do is we deal with treatment centers for mental health and also for substance abuse across the country. And so I have a great working relationship where I can call them up, say, listen, I need to get a person in for PTSD. They have a sub-occurrent disorder of substance abuse, but the primary is a PTSD. We can work and get them in there. We also end up dealing with, we offer free trainings around the state as well. And so our thing is just to get the word out. Since we're all volunteer, any money that comes in, because we operate off donations, we provide free trainings, especially to departments, because a lot of times they don't have the budget to send their people out for stress reduction, for mental health, for peer support, for critical incident stress management. We'll provide those trainings free of charge to departments. We just did one down in Pierce County, which we did Pierce County Corrections, Pierce County Sheriff, and we flew an instructor up from Sacramento to do it. And we gave them a 3-day class on critical incident stress management and peer support. No cost to the departments. All they had to do is provide the time. The other thing that we do, because I don't want finances to ever be a barrier to get help, is that we have a scholarship program in which we give people money to cover insurance or things that insurance won't cover to get into treatment. And that's inpatient or outpatient treatment for mental health or substance abuse. And we've given out over $11,000 this year just in that. And so we want to take away all reasons or barriers away from people getting help. The other thing that we've done, or that's unique, is that we're covered under an RCW confidentiality law. So since I work for Seattle Police, and I get called by Seattle Police all the time, even by our chiefs, and if I deal with a Seattle police officer and my chief comes to me and says, Officer Redmond, I order you to tell me what it is that you and that person talked about, I can politely and respectfully tell my chief to go pound sand, okay? Because they're not going to get it. Fortunately, my department doesn't do it. They support it. If I get a call today and I have to go over to Spokane in order to sit down and have a face-to-face contact with the person or a family to help them come up with a solution, then they say, see ya, have a good trip. And they support that way because they see the benefit of it and they've received the benefit of it. So, our big thing is this: we're just the middle person. We're a safe conduit. We're just another resource, a safe conduit for people who would possibly normally not go out and ask for help, to possibly ask for help, and then our job is to get them to people like you who are the professionals. None of us are counselors. Okay? I have a criminal justice degree, which means I took it because there was no math. That was about it. But, we're not counselors. I've dealt with over 3,500 first responders at this point. I've been doing this for a little while in some form of crisis, be it from babysitting issues all the way up to suicide. So I have some experience. By no means am I an expert. Okay? I just know what works. I know what doesn't work. And that's what I try to relay. So. There we go. Okay, traits and profiles of first responders. A lot of this, let me just say, who here has dealt with a lot of first responders in their practice? Wonderful. Who here has not dealt with any? Good. Okay. So, one thing about first responders is this, is that since the moment we enter the academy, be it police or fire, corrections or whatever, first thing they teach us is you have to be in control at all times. You have to go into a situation. When you walk into the situation, you're in control. You control what happens, how they move, what they do, and we have to do that in order to stay safe. Okay? That's what we have to do. Now the question arises, in order to ask for help, what do you have to give up? Control. It goes completely against everything that we're taught. From the moment in the academy all the way through our career. And the fact that a lot of us are type A personality, right? It doesn't work that well because we're fixers, we're doers, okay? We want to fix it. We go in and we solve other people's problems, we don't have it. So the biggest thing I have to do is try to change that culture. The culture of first responders, where it's like, hey, I go out there and somebody jumps out from behind a car and I'm going to fight for my life. I'm going to have 30 other officers coming to help me. But if it's something that's a personal nature, they're going to stand back and say, they'll figure it out. They'll figure it out. And so what are we more likely to die from? On the job or off the job? Off the job. Right. From by our own hand. By suicide. more likely to die of suicide than by any means of getting hurt or dying on the job. Okay? So that's the culture that we're trying to change and the focus that we're trying to change. The other thing is that we don't reach out for help is because sign of weakness, okay? And a lack of trust. Because in the past, when I first came on the departments, things like that, you didn't go to the departmental psychologist because it was, oh, you go to them and say, I'm really stressed, I'm having a hard time. They'll say, oh yeah, we'll help you. In the meantime, give us your badge and your gun, and now you're going to be stuck on a desk. Now, everybody in the department knows you're now on the rubber gun squad, okay? And so there's no confidentiality around it at all. It was an embarrassment. So nobody reached out for help, and that was the culture. So since we know that, we're trying to change that culture where Code 4 comes into place where if you don't want to reach out to your internal resources, you have an external resource that you can reach out to with the hopes of is that we get to them early enough, we get them where they need to be, and the department never even knows. Never even knows. Because their insurance will kick in, and if not, we'll kick in. Okay? And that's it. Now, if somebody's going to go away for a 28-day vacation, then the department may have to get involved a little bit or be notified. But at that point, if they're not in trouble with the department, there's nothing that the department can do. Okay? Nothing at all. So knowing that we have those personality traits, I keep hitting the wrong one. What type of personality makes for a good first responder? Well, you need somebody who wants to go out there and get into the mix. Very aggressive, type A personality, but be able to temper it. Okay? The other thing that we have to be able to do is we have to be able to master our emotions, right? I learned that from John over here. Yeah, that's my big word for the day, master my emotions, or big sentence. Anyway, the thing is we have to be able to disconnect from the event. Okay? I have a job to do. I go in there. I don't care how horrendous it is. I'm going to do my job, and I'm disconnected from it. I don't have an emotion. I don't have a reaction. Okay? I've seen some really bad things. And I'll give you an example, a car accident where I went to, and a person was dead, DOA. I felt worse about the dog that was laying in the middle of the road than I did about the person, because the dog was the innocent victim. This person was driving like an idiot. Okay? And so we have to disconnect, but we do that because we have to survive. If we had an emotional reaction to every event that we went to, it would destroy us. It would absolutely destroy us. Now, take it. I'm not saying that any of this is normal or good for us. Okay? I was talking to somebody. Do you guys know what the life expectancy is of a police officer, or was a few years back ago? 58. 58. Because of the stressors the job had on you. Fortunately now, because we're changing the culture and we're working on things, that is increasing. Because people are taking better care of themselves, not only physically, but mentally, and we're looking at the totality of everything. Because what's our biggest tool that we have? Between our ears. That's our biggest and best tool that we have. Doesn't matter what kind of stuff they give us and tools we have. If we're not firing on all cylinders, who cares? We're not safe and we're not effective. Okay? So people are learning that. And there's a big proactive approach to do that. I teach at the academy for every new class that comes out. So all the new officers are getting it. And go around the state and teach the departments about mental health aspects of the job. So real quick, I want to tell you about a suicide situation. We had it and it wasn't too long ago. It was a EMS student going through medic school, and he was having some stressors during the school. Parents were concerned, and he ended up taking a test one day, and he thought he failed the test, or at least that's the assumption, because of his reaction after the test. He threw some stuff down and just kind of stormed out. Called his wife and said, yeah, I got to go work in the ER tonight. I'm going to go there. Never showed up to the ER. And nobody could get a hold of him. And 2 days later, they found his car at the Deception Pass Bridge. And no body, no person, nobody. And there had been 4 tide changes. And anybody that doesn't know, up there, it's a very strong current that goes through there. And very rarely, if somebody jumps off that bridge, do they find the body. And so the family, who the father was also a firefighter, same department, had to be left with the unknown. What happened? The park ranger up at the site said, see it all the time, person jumped. They know, and told the family that the person jumped, which they were actually relieved that somebody actually told them that. So the fire department brought in their peer support team, brought in liaisons, a couple of family liaisons, and everybody just rallied around this family. But when we deal, especially when I've had to deal with circumstances like this before, any dysfunctionality that's in the family, you throw something like this at it, increases it 100-fold, right? Something's going to come out, or somebody's going to break. So what happened with this is I got called in through Code 4 because the peer support team didn't know what to do, because they had the father who was now starting to drink very heavily and starting to get suicide ideations and things like that, and didn't know how to handle it. So I came in, and my job was to come in, stabilize the situation, and get people where they needed to be. So I got pretty much all the family to therapy, and got them immediately into therapy, and the father ended up taking a 20-day trip down to another location, because we also had to remove that situation, because nobody could focus on the grief process because everybody was focused on him, and because of that, and so there couldn't be any resemblance of possible healing beginning, because there was another issue going on. So we also did with John over here as well, we did diffusings and did we do any debriefings? Yeah, and with basically 4 different families to kind of give out the information, let them talk in order to help stabilize. This unique about this is a lot of times when we have a first responder death or suicide, the memorial's pretty quick. Well, since there was no body, this memorial was 4 months later, okay? And so there was a lot of time in between, and this was over Christmas that this occurred, right before Christmas. So we have these family members that we are able to stabilize and get there, and the department's rallying around them, and they're doing what they need to do. And well, the issue was, and this happens in a lot of cases, is that everybody's around the family. They're cooking for them, they're cleaning for them, they're doing everything for them, and then when the memorial hits, they're gone. So they never did do it. They put the teams on notice, when it happened, and the peer support team, so they could start making notifications, things like that. They assigned the family liaison. Death response team, that's something that Seattle PD does, because we've had so many deaths on duty, off duty, through cancer or sudden deaths or things like that. We have a team assembled that, one, looks out for the liaison, because liaison, anybody's not familiar with the liaison, that's usually a family friend who is liaison between the family and the department. And so they're there to ask questions, answer questions, make sure whatever needs the family needs. So we have a team of people that are assembled that are from benefits, that are from a chaplain, mental health, peer support, one to make sure the liaison, which it's a 24-hour job, is taken care of, because a lot of times they can end up in worse case than the family. And so also, if they have a question, the family wants something or has a question, they have a one-place contact instead of trying to find the answer. We'll find the answer and get back to them. Just makes everything much easier. The MHP, which is critical to have on board, because the MHP can help direct and guide people, and they're there to answer questions and to ensure that the family, for prep teams for the debriefs, meet with the families and ensure families' mental health needs are being taken care of. So kind of between John and myself, when I had to go in and do it, I have, through the resources of Code 4, I had people that I could refer them out to, and we kept hitting people until they found people they liked. And I know John as well had resources as well that we were doing. So we were kind of hitting them from all sides. I like to say we basically took a pile of crap, threw it against the wall, and see what stuck. Okay, until something did. The peer support teams are key because they make the rounds to the other stations, police departments, whatever, locales where other employees are, especially in a suicide, to answer questions. Because there's a lot, especially in this case, there are a lot of questions and what ifs. Of course, everybody thought, oh, he just parked his car and went off somewhere and he's going to show up a month later. So there were a lot of that was going around. Rumor management, normalizing, prepare for debriefs. Big thing is referral to longer haul. So in the memorial, especially in a suicide type situation with departments, if we have an on-duty death, you've all seen the big processions, you've seen everything, and it's a big pomp and circumstance, you don't get that. In a suicide, you don't get that. In a non-duty, unrelated death, such as cancer, you don't get that. There's things that are not, because of the paramilitary culture and the way things are done, you don't have the right to have that if it's not a non-duty death. Sometimes that's hard to convey to the families because the spouse who probably has seen a couple of these things, wants their loved one to have that because that's a great honor. They're allowed some things, but not everything. Yes, thank you. So that is something that is difficult to relay to the family because they want that. And they also want it for themselves too, in a sense, in the hopes of some closure. Now, one thing with memorials, a lot of times that's the other officers or first responders' green light to finally grieve. That's kind of the time when we can let our guard down while we're sitting in the audience or standing at attention as they're bringing the body by or whatever. That's our time to where we can finally just go, and we can let our guard down and just actually kind of let ourselves go for a brief moment. Okay? And so that's sometimes our green light. A lot of times in the memorial, the family's looking for closure. Okay, they're looking like, okay, memorial's done. We're going to be done with memorial, and boo, we're going to be okay after that. Well, as I said before, what happens is everybody rallies around the family. Everybody's there, liaison, the department. They're doing everything for them. Memorial happens, boom, they're gone. The department always says, you're part of the family. We'll be here forever. No. I always tell departments when I talk to police and sheriffs, I say, please don't tell new officers, welcome to the family, because that's not your family. Get in trouble with that family and see where you stand, okay? Your family is who you go home to at night. That's your family. You're the employer, okay? You have that job to do, not the family job. And so, but that's it, because they'll tell them, you're always going to be part of this family. We're going to be here for you. Well, 2, 3, 4, 5 months later, that dissipates. Okay, that goes away. And people lose interest because we get on with our own lives. We have to take care of our own thing. So one thing with this is I've always had to deal with families 8 months to a year afterwards, because reality sets in. And after everybody's gone and people have filtered away and now they're not the center of attention anymore, life goes on. Now you have to live life on life's terms without any help. And that's where they need the help the most. So we always try to stay in contact with them and ensure that they're getting what they need down the road, because we are going to deal with them down the road later. So that's basically, the first responder world as it comes to this. Like I said, our Code 4, we're just another resource. We're just there to try to get people where they need to be, because we're all on the same team, because they all want people to be mentally healthy. That's it. That's all that we want. And that's all that I strive for, because the things, losing people over things that are preventable, especially when it comes to suicide, is not acceptable. And I want a target 0 for suicides. I'd love to be able to get a year in which we don't have any first responder suicides. I would love that. And so I don't think that's a bad thing to shoot for. So any questions for me?